So anything that's important to my business that I deem important that requires me to travel away, it could be once a month. I don't want to do that. So like I could do that. She wouldn't care. Personally, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be away that much. But like if they're evening networking events or anything like that, as long as it's not conflicting with something major we have on the calendar. Major would be a ball game, right? A baseball game or swim meet of Emma's or something that is a big event, a wedding we have to go to, something like that. Outside of all that, I'm free to go. I can go. Just don't care. I have a lot of friends, a lot of other entrepreneurs that it's pretty much they've got to go through and present presentation to their wife to convince them to let them go on the next business trip or whatever. I've never had to do that, not once in my entire career. And not only that, she asks regularly, like, when's your next business trip? Where's the next, whatever event, conference you're going to? Welcome to Burning the Ships podcast, and I'm your host, Jason Seward. And today, on this solo episode, I'll be talking about the most important business decision you will ever make, by far. And that is your spouse or your significant other. And I'll dive into that here shortly. But let me set the table. I have heard a lot of entrepreneurs say this, and a lot of times it is framed in a way that is not the direction I'm going to go with it. So it's framed in a way with having a partner or a significant other, a spouse. And in this case, I'll speak about a spouse, right? I am married to my wife, so I'll kind of tie in examples with us into this conversation. But it could be your longtime girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, husband, wife, whatever it is. But that person, and I'm going to speak to the importance of it. So where I'm going to take it probably a little bit different than what you hear a lot of entrepreneurs say when they talk about this, is they talk about it from the perspective of having a spouse that is 100% on board and supports their grind in the business. Okay. And that's great. Like that to some degree, that's important. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but I'm not talking about the importance of having a spouse that's willing to sit at home while you, the entrepreneur, is out conquering the world 90 hours a week, 120 hours a week, literally only coming home to grab a bite to eat, maybe get a few hours of sleep, and then off to do it again. So you're leaving that spouse to manage the home, manage their own emotions, in a lot of cases, raise children without you being there. Yes, that entrepreneur is providing to that family, but they're not there. And so a lot of entrepreneurs speak to the importance of having a spouse. And like in my case, I'm a man, I have a wife at home and kids, and her being able to hold everything down while I'm out conquering the world and making all this money. I'm not going there at all. I'm going to go a completely different angle. There are seasons in entrepreneurship where that is important, right? And sacrifices have to be made on both sides. On my side, where I do have to pull the lever a little bit harder on, just hours committed to the business, which takes hours away from the family. Those are few and far between now. But there are times where that's important. And it's important for me to have a spouse, my wife, Katie, who steps up. No problem. I got this. I got us this week. You're traveling. You got to do what you got to do. You go travel. I've got everything. And it gives me the freedom and the peace of mind to go do that and not have to worry about what I'm compromising at home. So there are seasons for that, but that is not the norm. And that's not what I'm talking about. So, what I'm talking about is in business, entrepreneurship, and I've experienced this really hardcore the last 4 years, but I've experienced it in my corporate career as well, because I was fortunate enough to be in a career that I got to approach to some degree as a business. I got to run things, especially when I got into a leadership position. Yes, I was working for a very bureaucratic organization, but within my agency and my team that I had that answered to me and that I was responsible for growing and doing all those things in production, I did have a lot of flexibility and freedom to run it as if it were my business. So I have had this this setup or this situation for pretty much my whole career, where I've been able to run things as it's my business. And then here recently, the last 4 or so years, it has truly been my business. But where I'm going with all that is Katie and I have been married pretty much all of my career, right? We got married pretty much early in my corporate career. We married in 2009, but we started dating in 2007. I started that career in 2005, I believe. So, she has been a part of that journey since the beginning, right? So, and didn't know it at the time. I wasn't aware of the importance of this and how it would all play out on the business side of things. And to some degree, it was a stroke of luck for me to find and grow with this woman, this spouse of mine, that ended up being the number one important piece to all of my growth, right? I didn't like go out and screen for that. I didn't screen her for, is she going to be the solid foundation I need emotionally and supportive and all that stuff as I grow a business? No, not at all. I was checking the normal boxes. Early on, am I attracted to her? Check. Can I have a conversation with her? Check. Is she intelligent? Check. Is she going to make a good mother? Check. All those things, that I was screening for early on. But then as we grow in our relationship and ultimately get married, I'll start seeing like these things that, like, man, she's really good at these things, which I'll get into what these things are. But that give me the confidence to go forward and conquer things, to try new things, take big risks and stuff like that. So it evolved to where early on I wasn't even aware of how important this is, to, again, that stroke of luck. And a lot of the things that I was looking for in a spouse early on tend to transition or correlate well to supporting what I'm doing in business as well. So I'll get into all that. So I think, a lot of it has to do with like why it's so important is anybody, and this could be in your career too. I'm going to kind of speak more towards entrepreneurs, but you can have a career too and experience these same things. But as an entrepreneur, there's immense pressure, right? There's immense pressure to make sure it works. As you grow a business, then you got immense pressure to make sure it works not only for yourself and your family, but employees, right? People that you bring into your ecosystem, you've got to make sure it works for them, right? They're dependent upon this thing working, right? So that's an immense amount of pressure. At times, there's long hours, right? I try to construct and build everything to avoid that as much as possible, right? Where the hours don't creep in so much that I'm compromising the family and all the things that I left my corporate world for to go into entrepreneurship. But at times there's long hours. So there's pressure, there's long hours, there's emotional swings. Like there's highs and lows at owning a business, right? Some days you come home and you're on top of the world, right? You've made a big deal, or you've had a good month or a good quarter, or just you've hired a good employee, you uh, executed a really good idea. Like there's those days where you're just high. You come home on a high. Nothing can stop you, right? But then there's days that, and weeks, and sometimes months, where nothing feels like it's winning. You're not getting any wins. You're not checking any boxes, and that can be hard, right? So what does that lead to? The ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. It can lead to emotional swings, right? Some days I come home top of the world, let's go, all the energy in the world, I'm fired up, and my family feels that, right? My wife feels that, and it's good. Everybody rides that high with me. Sometimes I come home and it's been a challenging, few days or a few weeks, or something happened negative in the business or around the business, and I just ain't feeling it, right? why is my spouse an important piece of that? Because she quickly recognizes that, whether it's through me communicating like I had a rough day today, I need some space, or she just sees it. And most of the time she just sees it. Like she'll ask, "You okay? Everything okay?" My default answer is, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I like talking about things later, not in the moment. So but she recognizes it, and in those moments, a a, a, a bad choice of spouse, um, someone that does not do a good job recognizing, they don't give a crap how bad of a day you had, they might add to that pressure, right? You're already having like a downward emotional swing because it's a rough day, and you walk in the house and they can pile on by, why have you done this? What about this? The grass needs cutting, all this stuff, and just pile on top of an already complex day for you, or complex mindset. Um, However, a good spouse, a good partner is going to recognize it, and they're going to give you the space you need to just work through that, whatever those emotions are. If you need an ear, they're going to give you that ear. If you need advice, they're going to give you that advice. If you just need quiet and space, they're going to give you that too. And I personally have been very fortunate to have someone like Katie that is very aware of my emotions, right? And fortunately for both of us, my emotional swings, I'm pretty steady emotionally, right? I'm more on the emotionally high side. When I get excited, things are good. And sometimes not everybody in the house is on that same wavelength when I'm ready to celebrate and be excited about everything. So I don't have many dips in that where I come home and I'm just drained, don't feel like talking to anybody. But I do occasionally. Um, Katie has a very good radar on that. She's very good at detecting it and not putting additional pressure on me, and just letting me stew if I need to stew, or work through whatever I need to do. So that is very important. Um, Another thing is, there, going back to pressure, and this ties in with pressure for sure. But it's when you're trying to build a business, right? I have all these aspirations and visions of just where it's going to go and what it's going to grow into, right? That's how I'm wired. I always look at that, not so much from the money standpoint, but just figuring things out and growing something. That's exciting to me. And sometimes that takes a little bit longer than you anticipate. And I've talked on this podcast multiple times about, like, that first year and a half we were in business or so, it just wasn't moving at the pace that I had envisioned, right? So I'm trying to learn through that process, like how to delay gratification, if you will, right? I wanted that instant result. Let's go, let's get it. It wasn't happening as fast as I thought. So and I was sharing all these visions and goals with Katie, right? She never put pressure on me at all. None. Zero. None. Never once said, "Oh, why are y'all struggling hitting your goals? Why is it slower than you thought it would be?" Never. It was always supportive. "You good? I got you if you need to talk. Let's go." That's how it was always. So while I had the pressure in the business, and it was kind of self-inflicted, like it wasn't from my business partner, it wasn't from, the business was doing fine. I just wanted bigger goals to be hit faster. I didn't have that pressure compounded by a spouse at home that was just hammering me, like, "Why aren't you doing this? Where the bills are piling up, blah blah blah." Well, they weren't, but I didn't have any of that. So that's a cheat code, really, in business, because I can focus on maneuvering in my business without the pressure of a spouse at home questioning every decision I make and why it's not growing fast enough and all this stuff. So that certainly helped. Um, Another thing, and like Katie does a fantastic job. Now, I'm talking about me being the entrepreneur, her being the spouse. She works too, so she's dealing with all this stuff as well, and I have to do a good job as her spouse, giving her these same things as well, right? But I'm going to talk about me receiving them, her, or you as the entrepreneur being the one having the spouse that is supportive and is the most important piece of what you're doing. So, from an emotional standpoint, again, it's kind of like I was talking about earlier. There's a lot of pressure in business and these swings up and down and stuff like that. Um, it is super important that your spouse is I'll say stable emotionally, right? They, I like to say, like, Katie, when I think of her, what I feel for her as, like, how she plays a big part in my business. For starters, I should have said this in the beginning, Katie has no involvement with our business. Zero. Couldn't tell you. She could tell you what we do, but she doesn't know the size of it. She doesn't know what our customers are doing, what our investors are doing. She doesn't know any of it, right? And that's okay. She doesn't want to, right? It's not like that I'm intentionally excluding her, but it's not her thing. She doesn't have that much interest in it. And if she did, I don't know that it would be that great if she wanted to be a piece of it, because it's just not how we have structured things. But that said, she she knows that for me to be at my best in the business, I've got to have clarity. I've got to have emotional clarity. And what I mean by that is I can't have a lot of fog in my brain, um, when I'm trying to grow a business, when I'm trying to focus on solving puzzles and visualizing things and stuff like that. So the area in my life that could cause the most fog is at home, right? So if I have a spouse that every minute I'm there, they're just chirping about something negative and they're just draining my battery. And this is what I was getting ready to say with Katie. Katie is like my battery charger. And I mean that. Like, if I get home at the end of the day and my battery is drained, and we do this for each other, same thing. She's a teacher. Fortunately, as I record this, they're like in their last week of school. So her energy level is about to spike, for the summer. But most of the time, she's just like me. We get home at the end of the day, we're drained, right? Our battery is drained, and we are each other's battery chargers, right? We are not additional drain to each other's battery. It could be like that. Unfortunately, I know a lot of marriages and friends of mine that are in marriages like this where they're they drain each other, right? So the spouse, call it the husband, goes out to work or run his business all day, comes home, battery's on low, and then their spouse is just piling on and they're sucking that energy even more down to empty, and it's just rinse and repeat every day. That's terrible. That is a so that doesn't allow that person, the entrepreneur, to then revisit that next day with a full battery. They're on E, starting the next day with a cloudy mind, no clarity, it's fog in the brain. And do you think they're going to be more productive that next day? No, every day is just going to compound, and it's not. They're going to be 20% of what they could give to their business because their spouse at home has drained that battery, right? How can they drain it? Again, it could be just constant disrespect. That's probably the best word I can say, by just challenging them on everything, nitpicking everything they do, not letting them. And this goes both ways. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking like just a man and his wife being this. It goes both ways, because women have draining days too, whether they work, whether they run a business, or whether probably the most draining job you can have, whether they stay at home with the children or homeschool their children or whatever the case may be. That's about as draining as it gets. So they need this from their spouse that's coming home every day as well. But they've got to be chargers. You've got to charge each other. And that is how I believe Katie and I have done so well. And she's been such an integral part in my business growth and my success in my former job and my current business, is because we get to go home every night, most nights, unless I'm traveling or she's traveling, which isn't often, but most nights we get to go home and charge each other's batteries. That's huge, huge, because it allows us to reset the next day with the full battery. We wake up every morning happy, right? Tired, but happy. Like this morning, I'm walking through the hallway and Katie just as happy as she could be. Good morning, and hugs me and does all these things. And like, that's starting the day off at 100% for me. The energy's there. She's starting off at 100% because I receive all that and I get it right back to her. And we've charged our battery the night before after a draining day. We've had a great sleep. We wake up 100% full energy, loving each other, not adding any stress to each other's life. We can go out and conquer another day. That's critical. So there is nothing else in my business that impacts my business more than that. The person at home allowing me to go attack my business with 100% charge, right? 100%. And here I am, I'm recording this at midday, 12:30. It's lunchtime. My battery is still optimized, right? Because it got charged last night by my wife and this morning, and her battery is full because we both charge each other's batteries. On the flip side, if I come home yesterday, I'm forgetting what we did. She got home late last night because she had to take Emma to swim practice. So she gets home around 8:30, 9 o'clock. It was kind of some chaos last night in our house with Emma had to wear some kind of dress today, a specific dress, and it had wrinkles in it. So Katie was up late trying to get all that straightened out. JJ had some kind of um, allergic reaction to something. We still don't know what that was, but his skin broke out in hives last night late, so we were dealing with that. So there were a lot of things that were potentially draining our battery last night, but we had each other, and we ended up like ending the night with each other. Cuddling in the bed and having each other to finally charge that battery. And then, and that's how a lot of nights are for us. It's chaos until the time we get those moments to plug in and charge each other. So, that is very important. That's the most important piece, is that emotionally, we show up for each other. So it's like, as far as it comes to like my wife, Katie, being tied to the business, right? I mentioned earlier, she does nothing with the business. She's no piece of it, but there's specific roles she plays in the business that are very important to the business. And number one is just belief in the mission, right? In the vision and all these things that we're trying to do. She believes in it. She might not understand it, but she believes in me. She believes in the mission. She also believes that if it all goes to crap, that we're good. We're going to be okay. She trusts me. She trusts us. At the end of the day, we've said it to each other for years. We will live under a bridge with each other if we have to. Meaning, if we lost it all, it's okay. So that's real. That is real, that we both feel. That I believe that if I fail at everything, now I obviously don't want to do that. I'm trying my best to avoid that. But if I fail at everything and it all goes to zero and we got to reset at nothing with the 2 kids we have and the lives we have right now, we're going to be okay. I fully believe that. But it's not good enough for just me to believe that. Katie believes it too. And she knows that I'm, number one, I'm not going to let it get there. But if it does get there, some crazy circumstance gets us there, she has faith in me to figure it out. She has faith in us to together support each other while we work through it, and that we will come out on the other side okay. What does that do for me as an entrepreneur? It gives me full confidence to go out and jump into things, try new risks, calculated risk, but take risk, do things, try to grow, try new things in the business, be very creative with my ideas and things that I want to do, whether it's in business or personally investing and stuff like that. She has full faith in me, and I have full faith in her, faith in me, right? And for that reason, it frees me up to just go after it every day. Number one, I respect it and appreciate it. She respects and appreciates me, and it just allows me to be free and go and do. And the net benefit of that is we're better off, right? We're happier because we know all this stuff that comes from the success of entrepreneurship, when it's successful, doesn't matter. None of it matters. The vehicles, the big house we live in, the swimming pool, the boat, all that stuff, take it all away tomorrow, we're going to be fine. My kids are going to be fine. Katie's going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. And that is empowering as an entrepreneur, to know that none of it matters. It's all gravy. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to enjoy the travel. We're going to enjoy all the things, that the opportunities that the business gives us. We're not going to take it for granted, and we're not going to depend on it, and it doesn't define us. And that relationship that Katie and I have and that understanding we have makes everything so free-flowing that I can't describe what it does for our business. So that's number one. She believes in the mission. She supports it. Communication under pressure, number two. One thing I looked for early, and I'm sure she was, screening me for this too, but early on in our relationship is how she handles adversity, right? That's an important character, or character, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a trait of an important character trait I look for in people, especially the person I'm going to marry. How do they handle adversity? Well, Katie had been through quite a bit of adversity. I don't need to go into those details, but she had experienced some adversity. She was very open in communicating that to me. She was very open in communicating what she was doing to work through it. Her and I, in our relationship, had some adversity early on when we were dating, right? I saw how she handled that. She saw how I handled it. It was positive, right? We worked through it. We grew through it. We continue to do that. So when pressure mounts and adversity, which is around every corner, comes up, it's important that your spouse and you are on the same page on how you communicate and work through those situations, adversity, pressure, things like that. Katie and I are 100% on the same page when it comes to that. She knows how I'm going to handle difficult situations. She knows how she can show up for me when I'm facing a difficult situation. I know how she's going to handle a difficult situation. Oddly enough, with Katie, she tends to handle the most extreme adversity way better than little inconveniences, right? Little inconveniences sometimes where her anxiety sets in, she might overreact to those, and I'm aware of that, so I'm patient with that. I sit back and do the best. I haven't always been this way, but I do the best I can to help her work through that. Major adversity, no problem. She handles it. I watch her deal with stuff through school and through just challenges she faces as, through her career and with our kids and stuff like that. No phase. She goes through it. She works through it. Very focused, mission oriented, stuff like that. I know how she handles it. She knows how I handle it. We communicate it. We also communicate through it. Like when we're going through hard times, we communicate through it. Why is that important to the business? Well, when the business is facing hard times, I don't have that additional pressure, like I said earlier, of a spouse at home that's going to be putting additional stress on me. We can communicate it. I can articulate to her, hey, we're going through it. We're going through it right now in the business. This is what it looks like. And she does the same thing every time. She gives me an ear, and she will offer advice if I need it. One thing about Katie, not understanding the business that much, she's got the best gut instincts of any person I've ever met in my life. Especially when it comes to detecting BS in people, right? She's around a lot of other entrepreneurs that are in my bubble through the business, especially when we travel and stuff like that. She has the best radar at picking up on BS, better than me. And she's called me out a couple times, like, why are you getting so close to this individual? I can see right through that. I saw how they spoke to their wife or how they handled their kids or something like that. There's something here you're missing. She'll call that out in a heartbeat, and we communicate through it. 99% of the time, she's spot on. She is spot on. So that's an asset for our business. And then another one around the business, this is personal and business, but we have shared values around money, family, lifestyle, stuff like that, right? Katie would not support what I'm doing if what I'm doing is taking time and focus away from them and our family and what we want to do, right? So if what I was doing was making us $100 million a year, but I was there very little, like couldn't do anything, couldn't coach the ball games or the baseball, and couldn't go to all the kids' stuff and be home every night and on the weekends and stuff like that. If all that was compromised, but we made $100 million a year, she wouldn't be around. Like, nope, she wouldn't sign up for it. Not happening. So we've got to be on the same page when it comes to that, because I don't want that either, right? I'd rather just make what I can make for our family. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully there's some icing on the cake that allows us to travel and some of these other luxuries that we enjoy. If that's there, great. But if it's not, and the reason it's not is because I'm not going out working 100 hours a week, we'll take that trade off, and that's fine all day long. I've shared this on other episodes, but I'm gonna share it again because I'm talking about the importance of a spouse, and this is like a real life example of that support and us being aligned when it comes to money and family, and that being the top priority. 2022. That was a weird year for me, right? I was, for the handful of years prior, I've been building this real estate side hustle, right? Been buying real estate, building a portfolio, and that had grown quite a bit. It was pulling at me even the years prior, but this thing could grow to something that where I was going to have to make a choice. And that choice was going to be continue working your corporate career and just kind of stall out on the real estate stuff. You've grown it, it's looking good, but if you keep going, it's going to turn into more of a full-time job than your actual full-time job. So I had that choice. Early 2022, I had made the decision, and not a lot of people know this, I had made the decision that I was going to hit the brakes a little bit on real estate. This was like first of the year in 2022. Even so much so that I called my business partner, Bill, and said, hey, man, I don't want to hold you back. If you've got a vision and you want to run with it and I weigh you down because I'm focused on my career, you go for it. I'll figure it out. I'll keep going forward in my career. And I had kind of gone that way. I wasn't 100% convinced that I felt that way, but it's kind of where I was, because I had a lot going on in my real job and it needed my focus, and I didn't want to compromise that. So I was just in this weird spot. As the year goes on, the real estate just kept pulling at me, and we kept growing, and we bought an apartment complex that year, and we started understanding just how we can build this more so month by month. We were just kind of building momentum there. And finally, I got to a point like mid-year where I was like, all right, this is real. I can cut ties with this corporate career and move on with real estate. I saw a path. I understood the vision. Intuitively, it was the thing to do. But I was in this still weird phase where I had a demanding career. This was gaining momentum. I had to make a decision. Long story short, we got towards like the end of the year, or last quarter of the year, like October, when my mind was made. I was like, all right, I got to do it. If I don't do it now, both are going to fail. So I got to pick one and just go all in on it. I had personally made the decision it was going to be all in on real estate. Cut the ties with my corporate career. But the only thing, the one variable that was holding me back, is I didn't want to create extreme stress or anxiety for my wife, for Katie. And I was wrestling with this because when I would ask her about it, she would say all the right things. She's a supportive wife, right? She supports me, she trusts me, and all those things. So the right things being, I trust you, honey. I'll support whatever you want to do. I know you got this, whatever you want to do. What she wasn't saying is what I thought was, I'm scared as hell. You're talking about leaving this job. This helped us get all this stuff we have and blah, blah, blah. I thought that's what she was really feeling. So I started digging. And one night, I'll never forget it. It was late October of 2022. I'd made up my mind that I was going to leave my career. And the only last step was I had to get that validation from Katie that what she was truly feeling. So we're in bed one night talking about it. And I said, look, you've said all the right things. You've told me to go for it, that you support it. But I really need to know, because I know you have anxiety around a lot of things, and sometimes you hold that in. I really need to know what you really feel. If I leave this job, are you going to be riddled with emotion, anxiety, stress, and all the stuff that you bottle in that potentially is going to blow up down the road if things don't quite go as well as we hope they do? Or are you genuinely on board with this? And she stopped me, and I tend to ramble, which I'm doing right now, but she stopped me in the middle of a sentence and said, look, and I have told this story probably 10 times on this podcast in interviews when it gets brought up talking about spouses and stuff. Every time it gets me choked up because it was such a profound moment for me. It still is. She stopped me and said, me and the kids do not give a shit how much money you make. We just want you here. We just want you here. And she it gets me every time because that I knew that was coming from deep, deep inside of her, that she meant it. All this mess about me trying to manage the two things and stuff like that, it was pulling me more and more away from them. And she did not care about what decision I made. She wanted me to make the one that put me at home and put me at the ball games and put me with her every night. That's the decision she wanted to make. And if that means us living under a bridge, so be it. And I was all in that night. That support, I think I turned in my resignation 2 weeks later, right? I had to go through a few things to finalize some things, and I turned it in like 2 weeks after that. That example and that story illustrates how important a spouse is to an entrepreneur. It gave me 1,001,000,000% confidence to go do it. Do the thing and do it with all the freedom in the world of knowing that I have the person I love the most, and the main reason I'm doing this for is my wife and my kids, obviously. And knowing that she's got my back and she supports me, rain or shine, whether we're living under a bridge or in the nice house we live in, she's got my back. That's all I needed. And that support is why the most important decision you will make in your business is who you have at home. Now, if she wasn't that way, what would happen, right? What would happen is I'd still be working a corporate job. I'd still be trying to provide, be a provider more than of money and comfort than anything else, right? Because I have a spouse that doesn't support all these ambitions that I have and all these or aspirations that I have and goals and stuff like that. But because I do, I was able to take this. So there is a dangerous side to ambition, right? I'm very ambitious, and I do have to protect myself and my family against my ambition taken away from them, right? So that's where another piece of this is important. Katie and I talk about this openly. If it ever goes, and it hasn't, but if it ever starts going down that path where my attention and everything is pulled away from them as the top priority, she's going to call me out on it. And she'll do so in a way, in a loving way, right? Where we can have a constructive conversation around it. But that's super important as well, to have a spouse that can call you out when things aren't aligning with what you guys are on board with, like what y'all are setting out to do, what me and Katie are setting out to do as a couple and as a family and as parents and all these things. If my actions are not aligning with that, she's going to be very quick to call me out on it, and vice versa. If she was doing the same thing. So that's huge. Another thing that Katie does that among all of my friends, right, I consider myself the luckiest of the lucky because of this. And it's something that it was naturally organic, whatever you want to call it, from day one. Both of us have been this way. And we talked about it early on before we were even married, how important this was going to be. It's two things, actually, but I'm going to talk about the first one. The first one is the recognition of her and me, both of us, in each other, that we need space sometimes. Not space, like I don't need to go be in the woods for a month to separate from life, right? I'm not talking about that kind of space. But life, especially with kids, and especially with all their activities, and especially with the business and her teaching and everything else we have going, we've chosen this life. It's a good life, but it's chaotic a lot. It's a lot of chaos. And with that chaos just comes constant motion and moving and thinking and not being able to relax and stuff like that. So Katie and I, first and foremost, we have prioritized for since day one, since we had our first kid, Emma, 14 years ago, almost 15. She'll be driving. She'll have her learners in a year, which is anyway. Um, but we prioritized each other first. So we're very fortunate. I will say this: we're very fortunate in the sense we have a lot of we have both sets of grandparents around that want to take care of our kids all the time. So we have resources available to allow Katie and I to go away on a week at a time if we need to. But definitely for long weekends or date nights and stuff like that. But we've prioritized it. We plan it. We get excited about it. We try to do a getaway, like a weekend getaway once a quarter. We try to do just the two of us, a big trip every year, going to Vegas this year. Last year we went to the Bahamas, the two of us for a week. In the years past, we've gone to a bunch of Caribbean trips and Nashville and stuff like that, but we prioritize that. And what that does is it allows us to, once a quarter, we're getting away for a night or two, just somewhere local we can drive to. But once a year, we're doing a bigger trip, and we get excited about it. It's something to look forward to that allows us to decompress. And there's something to be said about, I love being around my kids. I want to be around them. Like if I had to pick, I want them there. But occasionally, I just want to be with my wife for an extended period of time, sitting on a beach, having a drink, talking. We got this cool card game that we played the last little getaway we did, which was back in April, I think. Went to Outer Banks for a couple days. It's a cool card game where it's like 1,000 just questions that generate cool conversation, and they're like dreamer questions, like if you could. Uh, if you could only live in one place the rest of your life, where would it be and why? Right? Or kind of would you rather questions. And then we spent hours on the beach that day, uh, drinking, having a few drinks, just the two of us playing this game, talking about all kinds of stuff. And it was fun and no kids around and it was great. So we have prioritized that. That's number one. Number two, this is where I consider myself, I mean, obviously what I just said is very lucky to have, but this is where I consider myself extremely lucky and where it is my cheat code for my business. And it is Katie gives me complete green light to go on trips, whether it's for business. If I need to get out and go to a conference for 3 days, we were down in, well, this was a short one, but Charlotte, North Carolina, a couple weeks ago. It wasn't, Katie, can I go? It is, Katie, these are the dates. Do we have anything on the calendar that would prevent me from being able to go to that? We look at the calendar together. If there's nothing major on there, I'm not going to miss anything major. Go for it. It's never, I wish you wouldn't or anything like that. Go for it, because she knows it's important to the business. So anything that's important to my business that I deem important that requires me to travel away, it could be once a month. I don't want to do that. So like I could do that. She wouldn't care. Personally, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be away that much. But like if they're evening networking events or anything like that, as long as it's not conflicting with something major we have on the calendar. Major would be a, a ball game, right? A baseball game or swim meet of Emma's, or something that is a big event, a wedding we have to go to, something like that. Outside of all that, I'm free to go. I can go. Just doesn't care. I have a lot of friends, a lot of other entrepreneurs that it's pretty much they've got to go through and present a presentation to their wife to convince them to let them go on the next business trip or whatever. I never had to do that, not once in my entire career. And not only that, she asks regularly, like, when's your next business trip? Where's the next, whatever event, conference you're going to? So that's one piece of it. The other one is, and I give her the same, she doesn't have to travel that much for work, but when she does, I do not care. But what we do both travel for are our getaways with our buddies, right? My guy trips, which are usually like 2 golf trips a year, and her girl trips, where she's got one group of girls that they've for years have gone to different places, just a girls' weekend, a getaway. Well, they'll go 3 or 4 nights to Nashville or down to Florida or Texas or wherever. They've been all over the country, just like we do with our golf trips. And then she does one with her family, similar thing, like it's her aunts and cousins and stuff like that. I have never, not once, ever told her, no, you can't do it. It's a matter of just coordinating the schedule, so we make sure that she has time to do it, and I'm good to go here at home, and vice versa. Um, she's never once gotten frustrated with me, told me I can't go, even on short notice type things. Like, I could have somebody call me today, and say, hey, 2 weekends from now, we're going to go down to Pinehurst and play a couple rounds. You in? We're going to stay Friday and Saturday night, come back on Sunday. Are you in? My answer to that question is not, let me go ask permission. It is, let me talk to Katie and see what our calendar looks like that weekend. If I go talk to her and I see it's a clear calendar, usually it's not, because during the summer we've got stuff going on every weekend. But if it's a clear calendar, she's going to say, yeah, go for it. Have fun. Never question it. Never has once questioned it. She encourages me to do these things. Why is that important to my business? It seems like I'm going on a tangent, right? This is so important because these little resets that I have with her, just her and I, then our family vacations, obviously that's always relaxing, mostly. But then these resets I get to have with my buddies, where I get to go play golf. We might play 4 rounds in 3 days. We're relaxed, turn our phones off for the most part. We're just having fun playing golf, completely decompressing. And then I come home a better entrepreneur, clearer mind, emotions riding high. It's a reset. All that's good. And Katie recognizes the importance of that for those reasons. And I recognize it as well. And that's why we have always done this, and we will always continue to do it without stopping each other. And that has been my cheat code. Absolutely. Those 2 things, us doing our little getaways and her giving me the freedom to, as things come up, just to go out, decompress with my buddies and stuff like that. All we're doing is playing golf, right? But it's a way to just kind of separate from things for a couple days and really just re-energize things, charge my battery in a different way. So all this is to say, I obviously, I'm biased because it's my wife, but I have hit the jackpot when it comes to this, right? And it's been the most critical piece to every ounce of success I've had, is having that partner, that spouse, my ride or die, that will support anything and everything that I'm trying to conquer. And any idea I have is full support. And she's honest with me. If things don't make sense or don't work for us or her or the kids, she's going to tell me, and I'll receive that for what it is, and we'll move on and pivot and go into a different direction. But that honesty, that support, that faith, that trust, and that understanding that we're not controlling each other, right? We need our space. She needs her space. I need my space. We need our space away from the kids with just us 2. We need all that. And that has allowed us to thrive in our marriage. It has allowed us to thrive as parents, as friends to our friends, as family members to our family. It has allowed me to thrive in business and her to thrive in her career. And this has been the most important piece of all of it. So as I wrap up, I'll give you, I kind of wrote a few of these down, but some questions, kind of tactical questions, as you're, a lot of you listeners are already married, and so y'all can work through this however you want. But if you're not and you're dating or something like that, here's some questions that you might want to ask to kind of detect if this person is going to be the right piece of the puzzle that will help you not only be a good partner, but help you in your business and be supportive. The battery charger rather than the battery drainer. So do they respect ambition? That's a good one. A lot of people don't respect ambition. They want complacency because ambition stresses them out. So that's one question. Are they financially disciplined, right? They don't have to be an accountant, but are they disciplined enough to say, hey, if we got to stick to a budget of XYZ, can they do that without freaking out? It's pretty easy to detect that early on. Can they communicate during conflict? I talked about that already, but that's a big question. How do you detect that? The longer you're around somebody, at some point, adversity and conflict is going to come up. How do they handle it? Do they shut down and not say a word? Do they avoid the hard conversations? Do they freak out when things get scary or hard or anything like that? You're going to detect that. You need to answer that question before you go further with them. How do they react when plans fail, right? Um, you know, you got a perfect day plan with them and you got it all ironed out. Everything's going to be perfect, but it's all going to be outside and it rains all day. Are they going to be negative the entire day, or are they going to be like, all right, let's pivot and find something else? I know it's a small example, but that's a good way to see how they handle when plans fail, because things are going to fail in business and they've got to have the resilience to handle that alongside of you. And are your visions for life aligned? That's important to find out early. Obviously, Katie and I's are. And, I think chemistry is what everybody kind of rides on early in a relationship. And that can definitely start a relationship. But alignment is what sustains a relationship. And that's important to detect early on. So, the right spouse, I'll kind of end with this idea, but the right spouse doesn't remove pressure from entrepreneurship. They help they help make the pressure meaningful. So I wrote that down in my notes. I think I read that in a book I was reading recently. So I've gotten to where I'm reading, Katie and I both are reading a lot of relationship psychology books and stuff like that. That's helping us a lot in our marriage. But that was one that I read in there, and I made a note about it. The right spouse doesn't remove pressure from entrepreneurship. They help make pressure meaningful. So think about that for a second. They're not going to eliminate the pressure. The pressure's still going to be there, but they're going to help. And it's a lot of what I've already talked about that this one's gone on longer than it should have. But that pressure can mean something with the right spouse. And if they can help you work through that pressure and support you as you get through it, support your emotions, your actions, your decisions and stuff like that, they can make that pressure meaningful. So, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I've already gone on. We're almost at an hour on this topic, but it's something that's really top of mind to me. I think, I'll kind of end on this idea. I will end on this idea. In sports, in business, in health and fitness, in mindset, all these things, I've always believed in coaching, right? And mentorship. Michael Jordan, the GOAT, the best basketball player ever. He had his coach, Phil Jackson, but he also had other coaches that he paid for to help him get better at the thing he was already the best at, right? He had shooting instructors, he had dribbling coaches, defensive coaches, conditioning coaches, workout coaches, all these things. He hired coaches along the way to make him better at the thing that was already great. All the greats have done this. Tom Brady, I can go down the list. Entrepreneurs, Warren Buffett, guarantee he still has a business coach, a mindset coach. He's the best, right? He's great at this. All the, Jeff Bezos, I'm sure, still has coaches, mindset coaches. Tony Robbins, who's the biggest mindset coach in the world, has a coach, has a mentor. And so the point I'm making here is all these things that people are the best at, what they're the best on the planet at doing, they still pour into themselves with coaches because they're still trying to grow and get better. One area that nobody does this in, or very few do this in, is their marriage. And this is kind of a pivot that Katie and I have taken very recently, where our marriage, I'm very transparent about our marriage. It's been fantastic. I don't know why. I don't know what we've done. I can't tell you strategies, and I can give you ideas and my thoughts, but our marriage has been fantastic from day one. It's not, I mean, we have seasons where things get a little difficult and chaotic and we just got to work through them, but it's been a fantastic marriage since day one. There's been no turmoil. We've been faithful. We've been all the things that a marriage should be. If you draw it up, we've had that. So we've been very fortunate there. Why wouldn't we still try to grow and improve that marriage? So something we've done recently is we've brought in and started working with a marriage coach, right? And, so some people are like, why would you do that? What's the need for that? The need is what I just said. Michael Jordan, I'm not saying we're the GOATs of married couples, we're the best ever, but we got it pretty rock solid. But so did Michael Jordan, so did Kobe Bryant, so does LeBron, so does like Tom Brady and all the best. And they still brought in coaches, a second set of eyes to kind of maybe pick out some areas that they can improve a little bit and still make gradual improvement, because you cannot be stagnant in anything. So if Katie and I, as good as we have it in our marriage, if we just choose to be stagnant and just ride it out for what it is, you're either growing or you're dying. You can't be stagnant, and we're not going to die. Our marriage is not going to die. So we're going to bring in and come up, and for that reason, just in the several months that we've been doing this, we've been put on to great books. We've been put on to great ideas that we hadn't even thought of, that has helped bring us even closer together. I didn't think that was possible. And it has helped our communication. It's helped us work through some things that might have been lingering for years and stuff like that. So I end all that to say, if you're an entrepreneur or not, and you're trying to improve your business, so you're hiring business coaches, or you're somebody that's trying to improve your mindset, so you're hiring a life or a mindset coach, or your health, you're hiring a trainer to help you with that. Why not hire a coach to help you with the most important thing to all of that, is your significant other, your spouse. So I'm going to leave you on that tip, because that's something we've done recently that has taken what I would say is a 9 out of 10, in my opinion, marriage, and is pushing it up even higher. And I really cannot speak to that enough and encourage folks to do that. So with that, I have gone on way too long, and I encourage all of you to just think about your spouse, think about the role they play in your business or your career, your life. Appreciate them if they check all or most of the boxes. If they don't, start working towards a better situation, and do that together through communication. So that wraps up another episode of Burn the Ships podcast, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Burning the Ships. I want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, 608B Capital, helping real estate investors secure fast, reliable funding to fuel their boldest moves. If you're ready to take your investing to the next level, visit 608bcapital.com to learn more. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps us reach more people who are ready to burn the ships and commit fully to their goals. And don't forget to share the episode with someone who needs that extra push to take bold action. I'll leave you with this. Burning the ships isn't just about removing the option to retreat. It's about unlocking the courage to charge forward. No matter the odds, the past is behind you and the future is yours to conquer. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Burning the Ships.